Episode 149 on genuinely seeking God. Also known as Teenager God, who doesn't want to come downstairs. Apparently he loves you, but he's not coming out of his room. This is Matthew, and in this episode of Still Unbelievable, I'll be addressing one aspect of the hiddenness of God. Specifically, that the claim that people only fail to find God because they never truly sought him. There are Christians who say this with absolute confidence that you can only find God if you genuinely seek him. I've had it said to me multiple times, and I've seen it said to others many more. It might be a comforting self-validation of some believers. It's the theological equivalent of saying you only failed to find the unicorn because you didn't really believe in unicorns. No, mate. I failed to find the unicorn because it's not there. The idea is unfalsifiable, impossible to prove, and therefore a disgustingly pointless and offensive claim. When a Christian says this, they other the person they're talking to. They give them the least amount of respect possible by projecting onto them a story that suits their own preferred belief, all while completely ignoring what the non-believer is actually saying. The very concept of genuinely seeking is so nebulous that if it were any more vague, it would qualify as a horoscope. As soon as you take account of how humans think, how belief works, and how sincere seekers across history have come up empty, the entire argument collapses. This idea that you only find what you truly seek is exactly how people end up seeing ghosts in shadows, demons in sleep paralysis, and alien spaceships in birds. It's the same psychological mechanism behind conspiracy thinking. If you prime yourself to expect a pattern, you'll find it, even when it isn't there. Cognitive scientists like Justin Barrett and Pascal have written extensively about this tendency. See the links at 4 in the show notes. This is not controversial. It's simply how brains work. If Christianity were presented as a scientific hypothesis, it would be laughed out of the lab before the kettle had finished boiling. Ask yourself this. If Christians are the ones who have genuinely sought God, how come they can't agree on what that God is? How do you get an accurate picture of God from the varied messaging that Christians give out? You can't. The different versions of God contradict across denominations, cultures, and centuries. Even Christian thinkers like Peter Enns, Greg Boyd, and Rachel Held Evans have openly acknowledged this problem. So, when in March 2026, apologist Sean McDowell included this idea in a video responding to certain arguments for God, see the link at 1, I barfed. Frankly, the whole conversation is disappointing. I am constantly underwhelmed by the sheer banality of Christian apologetic arguments. How is it that intelligent people not only say these things with sincerity, but also find them convincing? I'm not going to address the whole video, but what I do want to address is a statement made by Sean's guest, Greg Ganssle, see the link at 2, in the opening minutes. I'll play the clip of that section, and then I'll talk about why Greg's response to the hiddenness problem is, frankly, offensive, demeaning bullshit.
God, so this is really what's often called the problem of divine hiddenness. So we could spend the whole show on this, but maybe 1 or 2 points from your perspective.
Yeah, I find this a difficult problem because it's asking questions about the intention of God, why he does what he does, and we don't have direct access to this. I think some of the most common answers have to do with God has made his existence knowable for people who honestly seek him, but he steps back in order to make room for a lack of coercion. I think that's a good first step on this.
Okay, good. This was from Zach Love, and I would say it's really interesting that this question comes up, and I feel the weight of it. There's a part of me that's like, yeah, God, just give me more signs. God, give me more evidence. So I feel the weight of this question, But I don't know that we always realize if God makes himself more evident in terms of what we want, what also comes along with that.
Yep.
So it's like we want everything to stay the same and God to make himself more clear. And I
Yes.
want to say it doesn't work that way. If you
In this clip, Greg says the following. I find this a difficult problem because it's asking questions about the intention of God, why he does what he does, and we don't have direct access to this. No, Greg, you don't have direct access to God. No one does. So how can you tell if you found the God you are seeking? Huh? Without direct access, how can you ever have any confidence of any attribute of God? Greg carries on. I think some of the most common answers have to do with God has made his existence knowable for people who honestly seek him, but he steps back in order to make room for a lack of coercion. I think that's a good first step in this. Interesting how Greg subtly distances himself from the idea. He doesn't explicitly say he holds this view. Sean also acknowledges it while also avoiding explicitly affirming it. Fucking cowards. The fact that this is a point that is brought up, and no other, is telling. They're giving oxygen to the type of shitty Christian arrogance that enables armchair apologists to fold their arms, sit back and declare another unbelievable dishonest for not genuinely seeking. This is exactly how religions, cults and sects form. People invent what they want and then go looking for it, and that's exactly what they found. Hallelujah! When you already know what you're looking for, it's not surprising that's exactly what you find. That's not divine revelation. That's confirmation bias. But there is a deeper problem with Greg's response. It utterly ignores the experience of every former Christian who desperately wanted to hang on to their faith. People who prayed, cried, begged, pleaded, journaled, worshipped, read scripture and genuinely sought God with everything they had and still got nothing. The pain they went through, the anguish they endured, the emotional and psychological cost of trying to maintain belief, all of that is waved away as not genuine. It's a fucking insult. To give credibility to this, as Greg does, is to be a judgmental, self-righteous prick. To make matters even worse, Greg didn't just give air to the issue of genuinely seeking God. He also put out the idea that God steps back to avoid coercing us. This is even more insulting because it makes out that God intentionally withholding himself from a desperate seeker is somehow compassionate. If I was talking to Greg right now, I'd ask him if he was a parent and if he felt it would be appropriate to test the loyalty of his children's love by hiding himself from them for a month. As a parent myself, I would never do that. I could never do that. It would be a cruel thing to ghost my daughter for any period of time. To do that would make me not just a bad parent, but a manipulative, unloving one. So when Greg says, God steps back in order to make room for a lack of conversion, the rage I already felt from the previous sentence instantly trebles. Fucking knobhead. And breathe. Knowledge is not coercion. Withholding knowledge is. Knowing someone exists does not force you to love them, worship them, obey them, or even like them. I know my neighbours exist. I'm not coerced into mowing their lawn. I know my local MP exists. That didn't compel me to vote for him. Awareness is not compulsion. If God is supposedly the most loving, most relational being imaginable, then the idea that he must hide himself to avoid coercing us into a relationship is absurd. Love demands presence, not absence. You don't nurture love by disappearing. The Bible itself makes this point. The Old Testament is full of people who allegedly had far more evidence of God's existence than we do. Burning bushes, pillars of fire, seas parting, booming voices from the sky. and yet they still had free will. They still doubted, disobeyed, argued, rebelled, and made their own choices. If divine clarity was coercive, Moses would have been a mindless puppet, not a man who repeatedly argued with God. Fuck you, Greg. If God is omnipotent, then the idea that it is somehow constrained by the fragility of human free will is laughable. An all-powerful being could easily reveal itself in a way that is clear but not coercive. Parents manage this with toddlers and teenagers every fucking day. Teenagers manage it with students every fucking day. Therapists manage it with clients every fucking day. But apparently the most perfect, most powerful, most almighty can't figure out how to say, "Hello, I'm real," without accidentally mind controlling everybody. Give me a shitting break. Honestly, if omnipotence comes with this many limitations, somebody needs to have a word with management. And as if that's not enough, this idea collapses into something even worse. If God hides to avoid coercion, then the people who don't believe are the innocent collateral damage of his communication strategy. They're not resisting God, they're victims of silence. Abuse. This coercion line is a theological get-out-of-jail-free card. It's a cynical attempt to rebrand absence as a virtue. It's like saying, my partner isn't ignoring me, they're just giving me space to freely choose them. No, they're ghosting you and it's time to leave. If a God exists and it wants a relationship with me, then hiding is the worst possible strategy, because this world and my experience in it is exactly what a world in which it does not exist looks like. Nice own goal there. If God had a PR team, they should be fired. Oh, wait. That's the problem for Greg and Sean. God's hiddenness looks indistinguishable from God's non-existence. Calling it non-coercion solves nothing. It adds a layer of theological spin which ultimately strengthens the problem. I hope Greg isn't an IT guy, because I can guarantee his methodology will make all your computer problems worse. Instead of challenging this idea, Sean weighs in with, I would say it's really interesting that this question comes up, and I feel the weight of it. Oh, how nice of you to say that, Sean. He carries on. There's a part of me that's like, yeah, God, just give me more signs. Give me more evidence. So I feel the weight of this question. There it is again. What do you even mean by this opaque statement of Christianese, Sean? And then he carries on. But I don't know that we always realise that if God makes himself more evident in terms of what we want, what also comes along with that. So it's like we want everything to stay the same and God to make himself more clear. Yes! What's wrong with that? It works with human relationships. And then he carries on. I want to say that it doesn't work that way. I want to go back to the Old Testament when God was making himself arguably more clear. There's a different dynamic and relationship that Israel has, certainly in the desert relating to God. And I'm not sure I want some of the other things that came along with that. Really, Sean? God was more obvious back then, but trust me, you wouldn't want that, mate. That's not an argument. That's a threat disguised as nostalgia. How nice of Sean to say he feels the weight of the issue. But does he follow that up with any validation of how awful it is to be in that place? Does he acknowledge the emotional devastation of seeking God with all your heart, sinking hours into the effort and getting nothing? Of course he doesn't, because he has no idea what that's actually like. Instead he goes off on a bizarre tangent about how having more knowledge of God means enjoying more shitty stuff. Is that really where you want to go with this, Sean? Is your God really so bad at loving people that they have a better time when he's not there? Just stop and think about the consequences of that for a minute. It's almost as if love requires communication. Shocking, I know. Schellenberg gets to the heart of the issue when he articulated it as follows. 1. If a perfectly loving God exists, he would want a relationship with all people. 2. A relationship requires awareness. 3. Many sincere seekers lack awareness of God. 4. Therefore, such a God does not exist. See the link at number 3. It's one of the most compelling arguments in contemporary philosophy of religion, and Christian philosophers should take it more seriously because it's not based on emotion. It's based on logic they so love to consume. It's also devastating in its simplicity. The kicker is that in the world we live in looks and behaves exactly like the world we'd expect if there was no God, and it looks nothing like the world we'd expect if there is a loving, personal, interactive deity who wants relationship with us. So when apologists say you didn't seek sincerely, what they're really doing is protecting their own theology at the cost of hurting real people. They're rewriting your story to make it fit their doctrine. That's not love. That's not empathy. That's not truth. That's real coercion. It's abuse. It's arrogance dressed as spirituality. Reject it. There is only one right and reasonable response to anyone who makes this argument, and it's this. Please make yourself more appealing to me by fucking off, you manipulative turd eater. And if they're still talking after that, congratulations, you've discovered a new species of theological barnacle. This is one of many reasons why Christianity always was and is still unbelievable. Until next time, be reasonable.